Right. Okay. I think we're in. So welcome everyone back to Psychology on Demand. So today we're talking about everything love, relationships, and what might go wrong. Today there'll be some people who are kind of live and some people who potentially are watching this afterwards. But please do comment away. And if you've got any questions, if it's afterwards, we'll try and get back to you. So today I'm welcoming Leanne Alston back to the channel, who is a CBT and relationship therapist. Lovely to have you on.
Thank you.
Today we're just going to be going a little bit through kind of your experience. I'll be kind of coming at it from a slightly different angle, as I don't do relationship therapy. And so I'll be trying to get that understanding and what is good relationship. What's a kind of what are your signs, your top signs that something's going well, and then once we distinguish what that is, what is this good thing, then where does it all go wrong, and what are the things you see where I don't know, where there's something going a bit wrong in relationships, and you're seeing that in the room. So that was what I was hoping to go through today. Before we kind of jump into that, I thought it'd be nice just for people who are watching just to hear a little bit about where you come from. So your journey into relationship, working with relationships, and then maybe we'd start from there if that feels okay.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been trained in CBT for ages now. It's probably about 10 years. And I find that really interesting. I'm fascinated by people. And then moving into EMDR training after that, learning about trauma and the brain and all those different kinds of things. But what's kind of sat behind the scenes for me for a long time is the relationships and how people interact with each other and the effects that can have. Because in one-to-one therapy, we get a lot of, we look at the individual and we can consider the environment, but there's something very different and very special about exploring the relationship and how people can, how my being and existence influences the relationship and vice versa, and the family unit as well. So relationship therapy brings in that whole different dimension of how I think I'm doing, but how my partner sees that, and if that's the same thing. So yes, so I've just found it's a really, really fascinating dynamic to understanding people and their psychology.
Yeah, I guess working with the individual, I've always only got one view, and I'm there like, oh, this is probably playing out, well, that's playing out, but I'm not seeing it, and it's such a curious kind of like closed door. Firstly, is it as it's interpreted on the one side,
Right?
and secondly, am I opening up something? You've kind of got to stay away almost in individual therapy because you just can't see that. You can't see that interaction.
No.
When you are seeing this go well, then, so this is probably not the bit where you come in, is the bit where it's all healthy and rosy. Hopefully this is a bit where you see at the end where it's all gone lovely and
right. Okay.
it's lovely. Okay. What is this thing that is kind of a good relationship? What would be the core things then that we'd want to look for?
Okay, good relationships. I think it's about being together, but also being apart. I think it's about finding the balance and the boundaries of I am me and you are you, and then together we are great. Does that make sense? So we're not great as a couple, we're great as individuals that have a great relationship. And because of that, that makes a relationship good. So it's about having, all the things that you would imagine. A good communication. We're in a position where we can talk openly about the difficult stuff, the hard things, the things you want to naturally avoid, and that we can communicate well and recognize I'm listening defensively. I need a minute. I'm being flooded here. I need to, because I know how I'm going to react, or I know how to communicate with you, and I know that this is going to trigger you. So let me frame it in a way that is going to land well, I suppose.
Yeah.
So it's learning the tools of how to give and receive information and how to listen. A lot of work I do is helping people to listen to the other. We think we listen, but we often don't. Listen defensively, I suppose. So good communication, good boundaries, because I think that goes back to what I was saying before about being well as an individual. I am me, and I have my ways of doing things in my life, and you are part of that, but you are not all of that either. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And straight away, I'm already going to the next section, is where it could maybe go wrong. So I'm like, what if you dissolve yourself into? What if you lose yourself? But something there about two people who are strong themselves coming together, that really strong communication.
Yeah.
And something there about the hard conversations, willing to have those grown-up hard conversations.
Absolutely.
A lot of self-reflection there. I guess one of the things I'm curious about is, because we ask a lot here, because we're asking for self-reflection, grown-up communication kind of styles. And so we're talking about this ideal that we all want. How obtainable is this for your average person? Because that all sounds like a lot of work, a lot of self-work, understanding defenses, understanding. What would be your thoughts on that?
It is a lot of work. You're absolutely right. Relationships are hard. And it's when we stop working, that's when the problems happen. You think about the amount of effort you put in when you first meet somebody, and it's magical, and you're excited, and you work really hard at that, and then it gets to a point where you might have ticked some relational boxes. We've got married, we've moved in together, we've hit some milestones, and we step back, and the cracks start to show. So you're absolutely right. It is work. Relationships require work. But if you are just self-aware, you're reflective, you don't have to have the conversations right. You don't need to get them right. You just need to attempt them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And things like fighting, a good relationship isn't without conflict. In fact, it's odd if they are. It's not typical. So it's about recognizing you're going to screw up. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, but we're in it together, and we're okay. And we're not going to get it right every time, but we can forgive each other of that, and we can take some time and come back and apologize and say, I did that wasn't my best work. Can we do this again? So it's I suppose the way I look at couples therapy is the way I look at CBT. Is that we do a piece of work with somebody, and we will never say, that's it, you're done. We will give them the tools, and they will continue that work, and then come back for a top-up if they need it, or if the problem changes. So yes, relationships are hard work, but you get out what you put in.
Yeah, something ringing very true to me there is that, and something I see at lots of places. Alain de Botton, have you heard of him? He says that as well. What you just said, where the idea that there's going to be friction. Everyone kind of rubs up someone the wrong way in some way in life. It'd be impossible not to. And something really important there about it'd be strange if there wasn't something going a little wrong at some point. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you think about a relationship over any period of time. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens with life happening around it. So family stress. I mean, it's Christmas. That causes loads of stress for people. The family, the money, the weather, you're putting the heating on, the cost of things. Life is hard. It's difficult. And that feeds into relationships. That affects relationships. So there's always going to be conflict, but it's about knowing yourself well enough to be able to say, this is my stuff. And you might take it out on another person, because we're human and we make mistakes, but owning it, reflecting on it, learning from it, basically.
Definitely, yeah. And I guess one thing I'm really interested speaking to you about, and this is something that I come from kind of my theory base for this is kind of Sternberg's works, where there's three elements: sense of intimacy, so that's closeness, trust, things like that.
Yeah.
Passion, so you got to fancy the person, and then commitment. So like those are, if I'm ever having to understand this world, I come in. That's my theory. That's my safe place. And so we've got that's the kind of theory I use. I know you'll have ways of framing it and understanding it within relationship therapy. What's then our general guidance to someone on the kind of stages in relationships at certain points? So, for instance, around this point, I don't know, you're probably idealizing, you're probably in the passionate place.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
What would you say is kind of like, and this isn't going to be true for everyone because it's all going to be different, but what are the general points you think of building a relationship, building commitment, saying the words, saying the I love you words? What's the kind of time frames do you think?
Oh, I don't know that there's a time frame, and I think that's the difficulty in relationships. Is my time frame is different to your time frame, and that's whilst the theory of love, the Sternberg model, is really interesting. It's quite black and white in that space. So it implies that, and I don't mean this, it's a great model, but it implies that we all know what those words mean. We all have the same definition of them, and we're all in the same place at the same time for that triangle to work. And it's a triangle of a relationship, whereas you have a triangle and I have a triangle, and those triangles need to meet, really. So I think that's what makes relationships hard, is there is no time scale, and there is no there's no set way of being or doing or having a relationship, because you and I might be in a situation and I might believe this to be a relationship and you might not, because of your experiences and your attachment style and all those different things. So it's a really big question.
What be a better question? So I get what you're saying there. There could be loads of different kind of movement for different people based on their ability to commit, to be close to others. If we come from two secure individuals, similar-ish triangles, what are the kind of just the stages? Maybe not a time frame, a time, a date, a set of days, but what were just the stages then? How would you describe the stages of that movement towards a healthy relationship?
Okay, so I would imagine, let me think about it. I think typically, and obviously it's not the case for everybody, it depends on how people meet, but I think the differentiation between a friendship and a potential relationship is passion. It's the real liking, isn't it? It's I like this person more than the next. So we're spotting that first. We're seeing romantic interest, I suppose, that, and I think in the early stages it's intense. It's infatuation. It's
idealizing.
Yes, it's and it's the romanticizing as well of what could this be? Who is this person, and how can you start to predict and picture your life together in 5 minutes meeting somebody, and then that evolves into the intimacy and the closeness and the connection, and then I think. And if that then continues and is reciprocated, both sides, or all sides, because not just two people in relationships at times, then that evolves and the commitment comes at the end, I suppose, because now I'm infatuated, I like you, you like me, you're infatuated, this is great. Are we in it together, and are we doing this? That's how I kind of see it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that sounds spot on. And I think an area where we know we're going to be idealizing, we're going to be putting people up high, and an area where there's closeness building and growth and closeness, and an area where you say, well, what is this? What's this going to be? Are we going to commit? Are we going to invest?
Where is this going?
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think it all points to that. And I guess this is moving in, so we kind of understand a little bit about what a healthy relationship looks like, kind of the stages, and I guess this is where we start to look, well, where could this go a little bit wrong? And I'm already hitting, as soon as you're going through those stages, I was kind of thinking straight away, well, if we're idealizing, if we think nothing of ourselves, that's going to be like, whoa, this person's amazing, and that could cause issues. We've got the middle stage where you've got to start building trust and letting some of your vulnerable self in, and then we've got the final stage, which is like the commitment, which again, things there that could come up. And I guess it's amazing that any of us get through all these, because they could all be very easily triggered. What when you're in kind of therapy, what have you kind of seen? Where do you see people stall? Where are people kind of getting stuck from what you've kind of seen?
Well, by the time they come to me, they've done it. So they're in a committed relationship. So we've moved past the falling in love and the infatuation. And to your point, one of the things that can go wrong at any stage in those early stages is that it's not reciprocated.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm in love with you, but you're not there with me. And you know, I like you, or, you know, all of that. It can be incredibly hard. But when they've come to me, the problems I see is that's historic, the infatuation, the love, the passion, the committed, but it's I can't think of the word. It's a distant memory. We've fallen into the grind. Life is happening, the relationship isn't. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So
we're committed, we're married maybe, but we've reached a standstill or an impasse, or we are now at a point where life has gotten in the way of the relationship and we don't know how to get out of it. Those factors, we're not close, we're not intimate, we're not connected, we're not passionate. We're in this, but something fundamentally has changed from when we first met, and we can remember that fondly. We kind of hold on to those happy memories, and we don't know how we got here, but we did.
Okay. Sounds quite comes with a bit of sadness then, that there's this kind of this great phase, this we're committed, we're invested. Well, I'm guessing you get less people who come to therapy if they're not invested, or at least one party isn't. And then it's what was and how do we get there again?
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly. It is sad. It's really sad, because part of the work I do, one of the big questions I'm always keen to ask is, how did you meet? And in the work I do, we do a first session together as a couple, and then they each have an individual session. So I would do a timeline, basically. So as you would in CBT, I'd just do a history taking. What's happened for this person? So I understand the relationship problems. I now understand, for example, him and her. Well, it doesn't have to be. So they each have a session. And then the fourth session is formulation. How do I understand the problem? How do I present the problem? So I've got space there to explore with them. Well, what attracted you to him or her? And what memories do you have? And when did you meet? And how did you meet? And they tell that story, and it just gives me a sense of why they're together. Because sometimes it can be hard to find that when people are in crisis or in conflict. People don't know, people have lost sight of that. So it's a good place for them to remember why they got married, or why they committed the last however long to this person.
Yeah. So that's so there's a bit where you're kind of taking them aside, saying, what are your kind of inner worlds? What are they made up of? Or your triggers and things like that. And then you're bringing them back together.
Yeah.
you're also getting them to reflect on why the love started in the first place and what is the story of that. So that's quite a lot of information in kind of, is that 4 sessions? Is that?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's quite intense. And then got your work cut out for you. So you do that, and then you present it to each other, and then where do you go from there? Once you've got this conceptualization, this idea of the two sides and the two people, where do you go then?
Well, so what that starts to look like. I should have brought an example, and I didn't think until now. So in CBT, we have our models and formulations, and in couples therapy for depression, which is my modality, we have a formulation in mind, and how it works is a figure of 8. So our standard 5-area model in CBT, but how it intersects with so my figure 8 crossing over your figure of 8. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's beautiful, and you can map that out and use it. There's question marks about, because it's not CBT, about how you talk around things. But I like a visual. I'm CBT at the heart of things. I love a model. So then what we would do once we've had these 3 or 4 sessions of assessment, conceptualization, and formulation is use this model, this figure of 8, to continue to identify patterns. Because obviously, even in 4 sessions, I don't have the whole picture. But I have a start of an understanding. I have an understanding of their past and their present and their future, where their goals are, what do they want for this relationship. And one of the key things about the work I do is they have to want the relationship to work. That doesn't always work out like that in the course of therapy. And I've had clients where they've actually realized in treatment that they want to break up, but it's about then me supporting them to end that relationship well, because that's also successful. It's a successful outcome, because breakups are hard. So what we use our sessions for after that is to have the difficult conversations, to explore those things that are being avoided. I hold space, and just support the couple to hear and listen and be and feel and ask the questions that they struggle to ask themselves. How are you feeling? How does that land with you? How have you understood what I've just said? And telling their part of the story that's led them to the place that they're in. So the ethos with couples therapy for depression is that the relationship is the patient. So we're all working for the benefit of the patient, which is the relationship, right? So the conversation is, so when that happens, and when you say that, or when you do that, what's the effect on the relationship? Because we're very good at understanding what's the effect on me.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And we can see the effect on you, but then we start to map out what's the effect on the relationship. And if this pattern of behavior continues, what's that going to look like in time? What does this do for us? How does this move us into those goals? So it's not as, there are elements of CBT in the model, but they come in at later stages, session 14 sometimes, where there are tools, but a lot of it is just navigating difficult conversations and holding space so people can hear and feel and think about and reflect on really what's going on. So the things that we talked about at the top of the conversation about building self-awareness and emotional intelligence and exploring boundaries, that's where the good stuff happens. That's where these conversations can start to bring that into the light.
Yeah, and I really like that almost meta way of doing it. Like the relationship is the patient. It reminds me a little bit. I love that. That is the sound. I really like it when they use like meta talking about like problems. Like it wasn't really about whether someone didn't take the bins out. It was about what that meant and what that symbolizes, and similarly, in a similar way there, like, it's not just you and you, it's this thing. Yeah. And just to shout out to I think there's a couple of people watching. If anyone wants, if anyone's got any questions about relationships you want us to kind of have a go at, feel free to lob it in the comments. But yeah, so yeah, really interesting about that, and I like that kind of framing and safe space. Must be pretty tough though when if you're just guiding it. Some of these are already on the route to ending. You must clock that sometimes. That must be quite tough as a therapist. It's kind of, you're just on a journey of, it's going to be a lot of heartbreak, or probably, well, maybe it won't be sometimes. But what's that like as a therapist when, I guess sometimes you're already on that pathway?
It's difficult. I suppose it's difficult in any of the work that we do, because we're holding emotional space for other people. We're supporting them through their tough stuff, whether that's CBT or EMDR, or in this case, working with the couple. So it's just about us supporting in the best way that we can, and getting out of the way. I think I work hard to let people feel it. If it's uncomfortable, feel uncomfortable, because what you see, particularly in the couples work, is that people want to avoid it. How often the problem is that we've got to this place because we've not had these conversations about our financial situation, or how we're raising the kids, or if we want kids, or the big conversation questions, the big issues. So I have to ask, sit there, and my job is to let them feel uncomfortable, for the right reasons, because it's about making sure that they can do that safely with me navigating it, because those conversations are not easy, and supporting them to find a resolution, or to find an answer, or to sit with it safely, I suppose.
And yeah, it's understandable, isn't it? These things are really scary. It could be 10 years relationship, the feeling of being alone. So avoiding conversations makes a lot of sense. We have got a bit of a question here, actually. I'm gonna jump in.
No pressure.
We'll do our best. Advice. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Yeah, Charlotte says, great content, guys. Thank you. So yeah, appreciate it, Charlotte. Advice for someone. Oh, you've tilted.
I'm not sure how I've done
that. Advice for someone that has a partner that has tunnel vision on them, and you want to be careful not to take advantage. Advice for someone that has a partner that tunnel visions on them.
So and fixation.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So like infatuation, I guess.
That's how I'm understanding it. I don't know how to turn myself around, James. Are we okay?
Do you have to turn the screen, maybe?
Okay.
Maybe just give it a little shake, and then there we go. That'll work.
Okay. Okay.
So advice for someone that has a partner that tunnel visions on them. So I'm guessing infatuation here.
Yeah.
And you want to be careful not to take advantage. That's interesting. I'm guessing it's one way weighted. They're in.
Oh,
I think
that's how I'm hearing it as well. That's really interesting. Apologies. Here's a cat now. It's all going well today. I think that's a really, really good point. And to generalize it to all relationships and lots of situations, there's lots of times where people get in situations where they take the other person for granted. And that's when things can go wrong, because if I just expect that you're always going to do the tidying up, or you're always going to do the cooking, you're always going to whatever, then resentment will build. So I suppose the question, or the way to look at this, is to think about, be aware of this, of the infatuation
and building in the other person. So if because this isn't going to be your problem, is it? Because they're not communicating.
It's lovely. Oh, it's a great problem to have.
But you're saying there might be resentment building if there's no communication or problems from
Potentially,
one side.
yes.
Yeah,
And if this
could be.
person who is infatuated clocks onto this and goes, hang on a minute, I'm
Mm,
working really hard here and getting nothing back. I suppose for
yeah,
the person who is experiencing infatuation, it's up to them to think about, well, do we want to have a conversation about this? Is this crossing a boundary that doesn't feel appropriate to them? Do they need to address that in some way that feels that change needs to happen?
yeah.
Or do they need to look at themselves and take action to ensure that they work as hard as the other person?
Yeah. It
Because
feels quite tough, doesn't it? Because you want, on one way, you want to say, well, that's your responsibility. On some level, you hold responsibility for your emotional communication. But on the other, it sounds like you're saying there maybe you're also saying, well, we can create a space where you can speak what you need, what needs to be heard from your side. But maybe,
yeah,
have
well,
I got that right?
yeah, absolutely. Well, it
Yeah.
can be a conversation that looks like, I'm noticing this
Mm,
infatuation, and it makes me feel like whatever it makes me feel like. Are you aware of this? And how do you feel about how I respond to you? Because it might be that this person is infatuated because they're really anxious. They're coming from an anxious attachment place of, I need to work really hard to prove that I'm lovable.
yeah.
And this
They're doing
person
more
needs
work.
to hear, they need to hear,
Mm,
you're good, you're fine. But I think one of the biggest things that I see in couples work is people, when they are coming for therapy, each of them has an idea about how the other person should change.
Yeah.
I'm not the problem.
Yeah.
So in order for relationships to improve, it's about how I can change to support you.
Yeah.
So we're not asking the other person to be infatuated less. We're just asking them, let's have a conversation about this. Is there something going on for you? What do you need? What's your unmet need here? What's happening? Because I love it. It's not a criticism. I'm just checking in. And do you feel as loved as I feel, kind of thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess just trying to take that position of this person's everything, or I don't communicate my needs. To communicate needs might be scary, or to lower investment, how much I'm doing, because then you might not stick around. So we've got like two fear places that potentially.
Big
I was
problem.
just trying to take the mindset of that position.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's talk about it, whatever it is, because if we just continue with the state of play, I mean, it might be all right, it might work out lovely, but it's bothering somebody enough to ask a question.
Oh, Charlotte says, yeah, thank you so much. You really hit the nail on the head there. So we must have got the right ballpark.
Smashing. Thank you very much for a good question.
And Josephine says, do you have some tools, advice for smaller daily steps you can do in your relationship to manage the potential for those bigger issues? So what's like laying the foundation?
Beautiful question. Right. So, have your own life, have your own hobbies, have your own ways of doing things, and your own opinions, and your time to yourself as a starting point, because relationships flourish when you've got time to miss someone.
Yeah.
Introduce novelty. It's all beautiful. It's lovely in a relationship if you you go for the same coffee, the same breakfast every week. That's a lovely tradition to have, but introduce novelty. And watch out. I'm a big fan of two places I'm going to send everybody, the Gottman Institute and Esther Perel. So they're amazing places for relationship advice and tips, useful tips. And the Gottmans talk about bids for connection. So one of the reasons why relationships struggle is because we miss out on bids for connection. And a bid for connection is the little things that we do that mean I want you, and not in a sexual way. It's just in the I just want to connect. Literally that, I want to connect. And it might be the thing where I text you a meme, I send you an Instagram thing, or I go, hey, James, look at that bird, see that over there. And when we're new in the relationship, we are like, oh God, it's like the best bird we've ever seen because we just want you to be there. But the more time we spend together, the more complacent we get, the more we habituate in our relationships, because we do, the more we kind of go, oh, yeah, I'm on my phone, or I just read the thing but I don't reply, or I don't do a little love heart or whatever. So it's about looking for the bids for connection, and you can either turn towards them. Yes, that's a beautiful bird. That's the best bird I've ever seen. Or not even as dramatic as that, just like, oh, amazing, nice one, just giving you my attention for a quick second. Or we can turn away from those bids. And if we turn away, then what does that feel like? It's like, I sent you the thing, you didn't. It's little tiny rejections. So the Gottmans, Esther Perel, bids for connection, have your own life. And remember, my favorite phrase is love is a verb.
Okay.
Love is a verb. It's a feeling,
Give
but
me
it's
all
an
the
action.
sound bites. Yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
I love
these are not original Leanne's. I actually think that's a Sternberg. That's not a me.
No, we're making them original now.
If you can quote it, it's fine. It's fine. But love is a verb. It's action. So if we're not acting in relation, I don't mean acting. If we're not doing the relationship, if we're not in it, then it fizzles. It fades away. So that's what we were talking about with the triangle before. The commitment piece, you need to continue to demonstrate commitment. It's not just about saying I do or getting into a 25-year mortgage. Yeah, that's commitment. But how do I show every day that this person is my person? That we're in it together, that I am with them, that they can trust me, that we are honest, and we are in it for the big stuff and the little stuff. So it's about being active in your relationship. How's that answer the question?
Yeah. Very thoroughly. Yeah. I was trying to.
I got excited.
No, in a
it's a
good
great
way.
question.
Keeping yourself, your individual self, time, making sure that you have time to miss someone. I think that was really powerful. The kind of novelty, bringing novelty in. You said there about those little actions that show we care. The
connections,
I forgot what you called those again. What were they called?
The bids for connection.
Bids for connection.
Can I add something, James? You summarised. I thought a little light bulb just went on in my head. I think going back to the point about having your own life, I think when people are in relationships, they make that person, and you hear it in wedding vows, you're my best friend, you're my soulmate, you're my confidant, you're my everything, you're my world. And what pressure does that put on another person? We want you to be my everything. I want you to be my confidant. I want you to be the sun and the moon and the stars and everything. I want you to comfort me when I'm sad, but I also want you to be really great with me when we have sex. And it's like, how can you be both? How can you straddle both those places? So my invitation to people is have a tribe. Don't ask everything of one person, because it can stifle that passion, that intimacy, that connection, because we've now crossed into a different relationship dynamic, and that keep boundaries, have some privacy, have some space from that person. Because then you are two beings, as opposed to Esther Perel says something like, when two become one, it stifles the flame of the relationship. So how can you be all about another person when that person has become you?
You're not giving it oxygen.
Exactly. You've stifled it. It's gone. But so there you go. There's my.
That's really really good to think about. And I guess I normally see kind of the other parts where someone's so independent they can't have the vulnerability to have the connection. So that's normally what I'm seeing. Really interesting to see the other bit, because I guess I kind of hear some good things, or someone will probably say positive things in a one-on-one therapy, and I don't see actually, wait a minute, that could draw away from the intensity. So we've kind of got two extremes here then. So if someone comes in too much in my whole world, that could stifle it. That could stifle the flame. We don't want pure independence. I don't need anyone. That can be troublesome.
Not helpful either.
So somewhere in the middle, and you mentioned a tribe.
You're going to want the sweet spot, are you?
some level of interdependence. There's some level of
Yes.
interdependence because we're co-regulating emotions.
Yeah.
But we don't want but we want to have our own tribe, our own support network around. So is that kind of what I'm hearing there? Is that's the middle ground that we kind of
Yes,
aiming for?
absolutely. It's the ability to, I can self-soothe, I can self-regulate without you. So if I'm trying to think of an example, so if I become distressed and I need you to self-regulate, but I'm distressed at you, we've got a problem. So I need to do the work on myself so that I can soothe myself.
Yeah.
That then you don't become my carer or my therapist, because how do I deal with that when I think you're the problem? So I need to be able to work on myself to own my stuff for me, but be able to take some of my stuff elsewhere. So what do I talk to my girls or my guys about? Do I talk to my family? Who are my other people? So that I can not put so much pressure on this one person. If you think about us from an evolutionary perspective, we would have had a village of people that supported us. And now we put that on one person, potentially.
And what, when you're kind of in the therapy room, so I get what you're saying there. If you just put it all there, it's too much. But just on the other side, so that people can see what good kind of level of co-regulation looks like. So where something comes up, what could you kind of, so we've got self-regulation, we've got some support network, but what does good co-regulation look like in the therapy room?
That is communication styles and looking at communication. So a big piece of the work that I do is breaking down communication and teaching it as a strategy. So, and that can be, and like I said before, people think they listen, but they often don't listen well or listen defensively. And it's a hard thing to admit, but you can see it. I watch the interaction, and somebody says something, and somebody goes, but you.
They're already in. Yeah,
they're in. They didn't hear it. They just went, oh, I don't like this. This isn't comfortable. I need to get it away. And it's understandable as a defense mechanism. So the co-regulation is allowing a person to speak in a particular way that is not attacking. You always, you never, that kind of language. We teach how to, when this happens, makes me feel X, I would like, and so we get the person to spell out what's going on. And then the other person has to listen. They cannot interrupt. They cannot contribute.
Do you have people sitting on their hands?
Oh, it's uncomfortable. It's like, and it's hard because you want to jump in. That's been your pattern. So when that person has been allowed to speak, the listener summarizes. Let me tell you what I've heard, not with their opinion, not with their slant on it. It's just let me tell you what I've heard, which is a skill that we use in CBT. Let me summarize. Let me tell you in your words what I've heard. So then the speaker is listened to, is heard. And then we go back and forward. Is there anything I've missed? And then the listener gets the opportunity to add, how does that sound like it might have made you feel? That sounds like you must be frustrated. That sounds like, and they're trying to put themselves in that person's shoes actively. So being validated and heard and listened to is really powerful to help them de-stress, deregulate. But it's a fine art, because when you are flooded, you can't. These tools just go out the window. It's about catching each other at the right point to be able to say, right. Let's anticipate where this is going to end up. Let's stop and let's put this strategy in place. But like anything that we teach people, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So it's things like that really help people to see it, anticipate it, know the triggers, know the struggles, and bring it back to a place of, okay, let's break this down before we know where this is going to go, because we've had this argument 100 million times, because that's what happens.
It sounds really enabling for kind of that inner wound and allowing them to go to the places we never, we don't want to go, the vulnerable parts of ourselves. Really powerful work. And I guess, so thinking kind of towards kind of if someone wanted to find you then. So I know you've set up a bit of you set up your own kind of company site thing.
Yes.
If people wanted to find you, where would they look?
So I am a co-founder of Well Minds Psychological Therapy Service, Well Minds PTS. So we have a beautiful webpage. We are on Facebook as Well Minds Psychological Therapy Service. We are also on Instagram as well_minds_PTS. I want to say, I may be wrong.
I'll put it all under.
Thank
it's going to be
you.
underneath,
Yeah.
so you don't need to.
Oh, good. I was like, oh, geez, I don't remember. And what I'm hoping to do, because we've been promoting CBT and EMDR with our blogs and our social media, is I want to, in the new year, pay special attention to couples and the couples work, because I love it and it's exciting and it's interesting and it can be really, really helpful. So if people want to have a look at our website in the new year, I'm definitely going to be putting some stuff out. There's a few bits and pieces in the blogs at the moment that have been posted in parenting blogs, but there will be more coming soon. That is my plan for 2025.
Okay. Yeah. So people, if you are wanting some support there, it sounds like really powerful work where people are just a little bit stuck in patterns where maybe it's losing, that intimacy, that passion side. So really, really important work there. If anyone wants to try and find that and search that out, I think you do online work and in person, and you're So
bit of both. Mostly remote at the moment, but it's possible.
Excellent. Yeah, so please do look that out. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of reflect on from today, or anything else you wanted to say about relationships, or does that feel like, did you manage to say what you wanted, your
let me check the little list. Points? I just had, I was so excited to have this conversation. I've been thinking about it for ages, and I'll get off the call and be like, oh man, I should have said. But no, hopefully, I suppose what I would like people to take from this conversation is that there is always hope for relationships, and they can feel stuck. The word you used before is stuck, and that's exactly it. And you might have tried lots of different things, but couples therapy can be really helpful to have a fresh set of eyes on the situation and to find that balance and to help you reestablish boundaries and reconnect. So there is hope. As there is in all of the therapies that we do. I know people don't feel that, and we kind of hold that hope until they're ready to take that off us. But yeah, don't struggle, because there's loads of resources, loads of places you can get help about your relationships. Like I've said, Esther Perel and the Gottmans do wonderful, wonderful work for people. So yeah, don't be alone. Oh, and this book, can I advertise? It's not my book.
Yeah, fine. They're not going to be complaining that you got them on sale.
But this is an excellent, excellent book about understanding your attachment style and understanding your partner's attachment style and understanding about how you interact or struggle to interact. And I know you've talked a bit about attachment styles, James, and we haven't today, but this is a great, great, great book. There's a couple of others, but that's my favorite at the moment. So yes, so that is my final takeaway.
Excellent. And there are so many things. So there was also, we didn't speak about infidelity and like what happens there. So there's so much we could talk about. If that's kind of something you'd like to know more about, please just put it in the comments. If there's need and there's a want for those conversations, then we could easily do one on, attachment styles and love and what that means, and then how that actually turns up. And I think it's really good. I think us discussing it, because I've kind of read all the theory bits like you have, but I haven't been in there with seeing it happen. And I think that's been really interesting to hear. And also the formulating. How do you formulate when there's someone else there? And so for me, that's been really insightful. And we go way back, but I've never asked you those questions. So it was really nice to have that kind of as a unique that was me just interested. So yeah, really good catching up with you.
Yes.
And yeah, we may be back in the future, but it's been lovely having you on. Yeah,
it's been smashing. I've right enjoyed myself. Thank you very much, James.
Excellent. And we'll see you all soon. See ya. Bye. Let me just bring it to end and